Hi, everyone. It's Tessa Arnold here with my podcast, Step Into the Gap. I'm so excited and thrilled to be able to share with you today Parker, who is here to talk about all the things related to her business and what she does from a real estate and financial investing perspective to short-term rentals to working with clients to really achieve success and connection and what that means to her. So Parker, thank you so much. I would love for you to give our audience just a brief intro and then we'll jump into all the fun.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here today. So a couple things. I am a nationwide lender. I help clients purchasing short-term rental properties for the most part. We do some other endeavors too, but the bulk of what I do is helping folks finance and build their short-term rental portfolio. The other side of what I do is that we own 12 short-term rentals and we self-manage. And so we've got those in the Smoky Mountains and also the Panhandle of Florida is where our particular properties are located. So yeah, I was the number 17 loan originator in the entire nation a couple of years ago. Number 2 woman originator.
That's
And
great.
so I do a lot of volume. I work with a lot of clients. But also, I think with the short-term rentals, I love doing that because it really helps clients build their own portfolios and kind of shape their own lives to some degree. If it's wanting to set their W-2s, or build a legacy for their children. So many different avenues there.
I love that. And have you always been in this sort of, line of business? Has this always been?
No. uh, no, I was in timeshare marketing for
Okay.
the first 10 years of my career. And then I switched to mortgage financing in 2016.
Okay, great. And it sounds to me, I love what you said in regards to building a portfolio for a client that gives them some freedom, right? And flexibility to do what they want. And I'm sure you probably got into that line of business, especially with the short-term rentals, and realized that it does just that and wanted to share with the clients. So as we talk about quite a bit, they could kind of be the architect of their life, right? It didn't have to look just one way. You're like, here, there's other options to be able to claim income, right? And to have maybe passive income come in and to kind of have those conversations and educate people. So could you tell us a little bit about how that looked and felt and what that did for the clients that you worked with?
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of accidentally stumbled into short-term rentals. I helped a client purchase their second short-term rental investment in the Smoky Mountains, and this was back in 2017. So this was right as it was really, I know Airbnb and Vrbo had been around for a while, but that's around when this really started to grow legs, and everyday people were like, oh, we could do this too. And then she quit her marketing job and became an agent because she was
Okay.
excited about getting friends, family, acquaintances
Yeah.
into it as well. And that's when, since I was their lender, I was able to see the financials, and I noticed that these clients were purchasing more than one. And
Right.
so that caught my attention. I was like, okay, they're investing in 2, 3, 4 properties. And each time I could see the income on the bank statements, all these Airbnb deposits. And I was like,
Right.
huh, okay, this is working.
That's
And
great.
so yeah, so that was my introduction to it. And then I was like, well, it would be crazy not to do this. Um,
Right.
and then it was really cool to see um, her develop a system to teach others how to do it and how to self-manage. And it's really not that difficult. I mean,
Right.
I wouldn't call it quite passive,
Right. Right.
but it's not rocket science either.
Right.
And so, so it's been really great over the years to see so many clients grow and evolve in
I
that space.
love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And probably add, different things can come into their life in that sense, right? So things that they maybe didn't know was accessible to them or that they could do, they're starting to call in now and being able to say, okay, well, now I can do this, or now this is an option for me and it's more accessibility, which is exciting. So we talked a little bit before the show and we were talking about just how, your portfolio grew pretty significantly in the connection with customers and clients and building rapport with them. And, will you just talk a little bit how that connection that you have with the client is so important and how that looks and feels for you and how that also contributes to your success?
Absolutely. So it was great when I first started doing this. I felt like I could have really in-depth conversations with clients and really get into the short-term aspect. When, as everyone knows, that real estate just hit that crazy time period of 2, 3 years, it was literally insane. Like I was waking up at like 5 a.m. and working till midnight. I mean,
My
it was
gosh.
like almost every day. It was insane. Um, but I also didn't have time during that time frame to connect with clients like I
Hmm.
had before. So it was really just like, all right, give me your info, get this done. You're pre-approved. Okay, you're under,
Right.
it was just it was crazy. And so it was kind of a blessing when the kind of when the industry slowed down. I hate that interest rates are high for everybody,
Right.
um, but that did slow down the pace. And at first, I was burned out. I'll be honest. I
Hmm.
was like, I don't want to talk to anybody.
Right.
But after about 6 months, then I had time to decompress. And that's when I started being able to really reconnect with clients again. And now I love being able
Sure.
to have that time to talk about short-term rentals or what's going on in their life or how it's helped them. Uh,
Right.
and so I actually prefer, I don't want to get as busy as I was
Right.
before.
Right. It's
Um,
balance. It's balance. Because I imagine, you have other aspects of your life that you have to get to. It's not just work, work, work. And I find so often it's striking that balance in between because, like myself having worked in the corporate world and bringing my work home and having small children and a spouse, it was a lot to be able to juggle. And burnout's a really real thing. But interestingly enough, and I can only speak for a perspective of a woman, we have a tendency to push it off. We're like, no, I'm not burned out. I've got more in the tank that I can give. There's more to give.
yes.
To the point, at least that I felt that I was like, okay, things are going to start to fall, right? My performance is so important to me. I'm used to giving 110%. Then what I noticed myself not, and maybe I was the only one that noticed it was just 100%, that
Sure.
I really beat myself up about it. I mean, I had a lot of guilt. And so it was a fine line that I walked to say, okay, enough, which was hard, so difficult to say. And I still, reflect on that now and I'm like, why was it so hard to say enough and set those boundaries for myself? But I do think that's a conversation that's worth having, especially for women. That boundaries can be so beautiful and knows a full sentence and this is enough and I need to take a step back. And that in no way reflects my worth or abilities or what I'm capable of.
Yes. No, and that speaks volumes. Admittedly, I have to say, I never set the boundary at that time.
Sure.
My saying then was because I also knew real estate comes in waves. And
Right.
so my saying, it was maybe a terrible saying, but I said, I'll ride this wave until it crashes or I do.
Right. Fair enough,
And yeah, it was almost me.
Yeah, sure. I
Uh,
mean, I think about I can just picture surfing because I do a
yeah.
little bit of surfing. I'm not very good
Oh,
at it,
okay.
but my kids do. And I will tell you more times than not, I have crashed and hit that wave or even being in the ocean. I love the metaphor of the ocean too. And you're exactly right. I think we roll the dice and we're like, we're okay running that risk of saying it's either that or me and I'll just be kind of the collateral damage and I'll dust myself up, maybe a little bumped and bruised, but I'll then go do it again. So, was there a time ever where you're like, all right, we're not going to take that risk now? Now I'm going to start to put some boundaries in place that feel really good. And what did that look like for you?
Yeah, well, luckily the market crashed before
Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
But you're right. But after that, that's when I could step back and say,
Yeah.
okay. And so
You
yeah,
saw
that
it.
I did. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that first 6 months, like literally, I would only text or email with clients for the most part, other than maybe a pre-approval call, because
Right.
I had spent so much time on the phone
Yeah.
those 3 years, like constantly
Right.
talking to clients, underwriters, appraisers, like you need, like I didn't want to talk to anybody anymore. I was talked out.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
so I did. I kind of set that boundary for myself while I recovered.
Yes.
Um, and I was like, I don't, at the time, I was like, I don't know if I can get to the point where I ever want to talk to anybody.
Fair enough. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So I didn't know how that was going to turn out.
Right.
But luckily, I eased back in. And
Yeah, it's almost like you've taken yourself so far to expend yourself to such an extreme that when you had the opportunity that was almost given to you, organically through what was going on with the market, you pull in and retract so much that you're like, wait, I don't want to give that much of myself again. And you slowly have to ease back into it because you're almost refilling and replenishing at that point. I completely understand that. So now, you've had time to kind of replenish and refill. And I'm interested to see with your success now and the continued success that you have, do you feel that those boundaries are in place now and that you would ever get to that point or allow yourself to get to that point again? And has that cultivated a different style of success for you? A more balanced, maybe?
yeah, I would say so. I mean, now it's a different um, energy in the market. So
Right.
now it's a little bit more getting out there and coaching and being visible, doing a little more marketing
For
than
sure.
I had to do back then, which I'm actually enjoying a lot
Good.
because I
Yeah.
love like doing podcasts and speaking to
Yes.
people and sharing that with a greater audience because I'm excited about short-term rentals and what I've seen them do for so many people, including myself.
Right.
So I love sharing that. And I've also started really loving sharing my successes with others that are hungry for that or that are looking for inspiration or guidance in their own careers.
Right.
And so I'm kind of delving into that a little bit more, which, and of course, I'm still doing mortgages and busy doing those as well, but I'm letting my team handle a little bit more of that transaction side so that I can be more on this side where I'm
Sure.
helping people in other ways. So,
I
yeah.
love that. So you found even it's like a more diverse spread of your time and energy and delegating a little bit more, which I find sometimes can be difficult for us to, women in business because we're like, we can do it all. Why can't we? And yes, ladies, we can. Doesn't mean we have to.
Right.
And you find other avenues where you can expend yourself creatively and share that information. And that kind of leads me to my next question, too, in regards to success. So I'm sure there's a foundation of skills, right, that has been just priceless to you over time and really irreplaceable that you've used in any of the markets that have helped contribute to your success. So if you were, the people who are listening on the phone now in our audience, if with whatever endeavor that they're going into from a very high level, what would you say has really maybe are the top three things that have contributed to your success and allowing you to kind of bring into fruition the dreams that you wanted to?
Great question. So I'd say number one is work ethic, which I may also be slightly addicted to work.
Yeah.
That could be a thing for me. It's not for everybody. And
Yeah.
it's not necessarily a good thing, but yeah, I mean, I've worked a lot and sacrificed a lot, luckily. And I have a 19-year-old and a 16-year-old. Uh,
Great.
but luckily, I've got a great spouse. My husband's been excellent. We just kind of have somewhat reverse roles. So even though
Sure.
I may not have been there for them, it's like, and there's some mom guilt there, um,
Sure.
but he was. And, so it's not like they were void of parental love. So, but yeah, but I would say just working hard and being dedicated to getting it done. The second thing I would say, and this probably, at least in mortgage and some other areas too, that's really helped me is going outside of the black and white rules, finding common sense ways. So I feel like in mortgage, sometimes a lot of loan officers won't challenge an underwriter or they won't read deeper into the guidelines. And my brain just wants, if something makes sense, just because it may
Right.
not be exactly what is written in black and white. And I'm like, no, like there's got to be a way to do this because this really makes sense. And why can't we use this in count?
Right.
So that's where I'll dig deeper, ask the clients more questions because the more questions you ask, sometimes you find the answer to what you need to get the loan approved. And so I think just going beyond the surface and not taking the first no.
Right.
So persistence. Yeah.
Right, exactly. And I tell my kids, I'm like, failure is a key ingredient to success. I'm like, if you take initiative and you stumble and fall, you've learned, and then you have more courage and strength to do it the next time. And that's really just the process of life, right? Continuously and being thoughtful about stuff. We definitely talk a lot about the podcast and with Step Into the Gap, the idea that we have over 6,000 thoughts a day, right? And every thought has a beginning there, an end, and in between each one is a space. And you determine what you want to do with that space. Do you want to continue on that train of thought, that thought pattern? Do you want to introduce a new one of I can, and I can continue to ask the questions? And maybe I'm not going to accept, what was just told to me. I'm going to introduce something new or challenge the status quo. So there's so many different aspects of what you can do within that space. And it sounds to me that you've played a lot in that space too, where maybe, thoughts were introduced or ideas and you're like, I'm going to sit with this for a moment. And then maybe I'm going to approach something a little bit differently or challenge it in a way that has proved to be successful for you. So I love that.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. I learned that early on in my career because there were the previous company I worked for, so we couldn't do jumbo 10% down
Okay.
ticket home loans. But there was a competing bank that was. And
Okay.
so I lost some business to them, which was okay at the time. But I kept asking the owner of our company if we could get that product, and they kept blowing me off. They're like, no, no. And I was like their top performer. And so
Right.
um, I believed them. I believed them that it was too hard. And the only reason this bank had it was because they were holding these loans in house.
Okay.
I didn't understand that it was really a thing that retail lenders could get too.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was forced a couple years later to actually go to a different company. This had to do with a weird thing that Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac had rolled out. And when I went to this other company where I am now, they have great 10% down
Right.
jumbo second home loans. And I was like, oh my gosh, all this time, had I just been more persistent with that, or
Right.
it is possible. I just didn't push hard enough.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that's what. So now, if there's a product we need, I'm very vocal about
Yes.
it.
I
I'm
love that.
relentless. So yeah.
And it helps. I mean, I think it just shows, what an asset you are for the company too. Well, they might not always be prepared to take the advice or call something in because change can be difficult. You're like, this is beneficial for our clients, for us, and, we can just assist them with more of their needs. And so it's a good thing. So I would say to anybody who's listening, wherever they are in their business, don't be afraid to speak up with ideas. It's the idea that you think of in the way that you say it that hasn't maybe been said before that can really make all the difference. So, with all this that you do, and now just especially because you are, so much client facing and marketing now more so than you used to, I mean, that's a lot of output and stimulation. I'm just curious, what are you, cultivating in your life to kind of replenish and refill your cup? When you've given out so much to others, because I think it's always great for our audience who's listening to find different tools and resources that they can call into their life to be just as productive, but then also really take care of themselves too.
So I admittedly am very not good at that yet. I need to get better.
That's okay too. That's a real talk. I love that. So
Yeah.
that in itself, I want everybody who just heard that to put it on repeat. That's okay because we're all just kind of figuring out what we need. And there's going to be seasons of our lives that we don't do a great job of it, and we know that there's opportunity to take better care of ourselves,
Oh yeah.
right? Because when we do that, we show others how to take care of themselves. So, that's good too. Definitely.
there is one thing I've recently discovered.
Yes.
I was at a women's retreat, and somebody brought these glittery pens and
Yeah.
coloring books. I have discovered adult coloring.
I love that. I love
Yes,
that so much. How relaxing. It's
yes.
funny. It's funny you say that because I'm not afraid to admit that we'll go to restaurants and my kids are 11 and 10. And they'll offer them the coloring pages or drop them off of the table. And I'm like, give me that. And I'll sit there and color this thing. The waitress will come over and order and I'll be like, sure. And keep coloring after and they're like, all right, let me see, mom. And we'll do like different designs. And I think that's beautiful because it's a form of expression.
Oh yeah.
It's a form of creativity. It's probably for you, I would guess, maybe an active meditation where,
Okay. Yeah.
it could
Yeah.
be. So a way that you can just, or call it an active bit of stillness where you can just let it go for a second and focus on whatever you're coloring. So that's great. I love that.
Yes. Yeah. And it's like 200 colors and like
Yes.
full picture. And I've learned how to smudge them and everything. I mean, it's like very.
So have you purchased a coloring book and do you have the pens and everything?
I do. Yeah.
Good. I love that.
Yeah.
That's
It's great.
great.
Yeah.
And it's good, it's those small introductions of just space for yourself, especially, because when sharing your children's ages, I imagine college is coming up and then the whole dynamic of life at home changes a little bit and shifts. And I find that, for a lot of people, and even for myself, when my kids are starting to be a little bit more independent and they're gone more, I'm like, okay, there's more time and stuff to do. And I do try and look to fill it with things that feel very good to me, whether it be learning something new or reading or doing a podcast like you are too, which is also a great thing.
Yeah.
How can we be of service to ourselves and others? So that's excellent.
Yes.
I love
Absolutely.
it. So, what does the future hold for you? What are what's new? What are you going to be working on? And what would you tell those that are listening, right, who are interested or looking at the real estate market?
Mhm.
It's been up and down.
Yep.
It's like you said, interest rates are really high right now. And we don't necessarily know. We just, had a new president take office, and that's always with its own change and impact.
Mhm.
What do you see on the horizon being the next either new thing or trend that maybe we could give our listeners, impart to them?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think short-term rentals will still be a very good way to invest. But I think that which markets you invest in are really important right now and being careful about regulations. I try to steer clear of big metropolitan areas just because
Okay.
that's where people don't want to live next door to the
Right.
short-term rental. And that's where
Right.
laws come in and regulations. So, I think like vacation markets or smaller markets even.
Sure.
But yeah, short-term rentals are kind of a cool outlet too. You can design and decorate and
Yeah.
all sorts of fun stuff. And doing so, and also, we may hit a little time in real estate now where prices come down a little,
Sure.
maybe values dip. But if you watch patterns in the long run, it
Yeah.
always comes back in real estate. Well, I can't guarantee that 100%.
Yeah.
That's just I try to watch more patterns and trends than anything else because that I think numbers don't lie. And
Right.
regardless of who's in office or what's going on, whatever we go through, it'll come up or down.
Right.
They've come down a little. They had to, so both ways. As far as real estate goes and interest rates, so a lot of people may not know this, so hopefully this will be good info. But the mortgage rates aren't dictated by the Fed because mortgage money is not borrowed from the Fed.
Okay.
And so, what mortgage rates run parallel to is the 10-year Treasury.
Treasury.
So, if anybody wants to kind of pay attention to what's going on with mortgage rates, I encourage them to kind of watch the 10-year Treasury.
Okay, great. That's great information. Yeah.
And, but I think that either way, either prices will come down to level out now, or rates hopefully will come down. This could just be the new normal for
Sure.
interest. That's a possibility too. Which I think as long as they don't continue to go up, then
Right.
we'll settle into. But I also encourage people not to shy away from real estate. You might want to do a little more due diligence to make sure
Right.
what you're getting and where. but it's never a bad time to buy real estate. Um,
Right. I agree. I absolutely agree. And I think diversifying your portfolio is always going to be the best, frame of reference. And I think any financial advisor would tell you that too, and real estate has always been strong. It has. And it's always, as you said, cyclical effect. And when you look at the ebbs and flows of it, what must come, go up must come down and or balance out in a sense. And I love that you said that this could be the new normal. So people can start to hear that and listen and say, okay, well, things will adjust to it and we'll settle into it. And we might not impulsively jump on something. We might do, again, some more due diligence and looking to see. And then also, that's a great frame of reference when you are looking in areas, understanding the regulation and the appeal in a metropolitan area versus a smaller area that you would have more freedom to be able to do it under less, rules or regulation or HOA or whatever it is that's impacting you. So for anybody listening, definitely take that to note. And I think also the understanding that it is tied to the Treasury bill. The Treasury note there, I think that's impactful and helpful if people are watching it pretty regularly. Now, it's always been, what would you say would be the prime time to start to tee up to look at properties? I mean, is it still trending that it's the spring and the fall usually? Is there a secret pocket of time that you always tell people, you know?
well, if you're looking at it for short-term rental purposes, kind of, so a lot of times people look at the spring and the fall because of school and
School.
children and schedules. If they're because usually it's when they're people are moving. So the nice thing about short-term rentals is that that market, as far as purchasing and selling, is pretty stable all year long. But if you have time to do that during one of those non-peak seasons,
Yeah.
you you might be able to get a more competitive price if it's not when everybody's looking for a primary.
Right.
So yeah, I would say there may be a little benefit, but overall, I think any time of year for short-term rentals, at least.
Yeah, it's a good time to look. I love that. And then I'm just curious, what is one thing that you've learned through your career and it's more something for you that you wish you knew, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago that you've learned now that you've really implemented that you're like, because I feel like it's hindsight's 2020. And I always love the question, what would you tell, yourself, your 20-year-old self, or because my 20-year-old self would be like, okay, whatever, be like, I'm not ready for that because I was 20 and I thought I knew exactly what I was doing. I would like to think that my 20-year-old self would take some of that information, but it's even, as a mother, we tell our kids, we're like, we're just trying to help you.
Yeah.
But we all know that we can only meet people where they are in their journey, and that includes our children. But with that being said, what is one piece of information that you've learned that you would go back, and share?
I think the power of being solution oriented. I wish I had figured out that mortgage was my superpower back then.
Yeah.
And I think just because I like putting puzzles together and that whole finding solutions or
Right.
any kind of career that really encompasses it. Timeshare was good. Timeshare gave me a really thick skin, and I did marketing, not sales. So to clarify,
Right.
it's a little different. But yeah, and I was good at that too. But I feel like this was really when I found mortgage, it's really my passion, what I'm really good at. And so,
Yeah.
I would have encouraged myself to have a little bit more confidence in those problem
Sure.
solving abilities back then.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That's great. And being able to solution there. And I feel like it's too often we accept just that I can't, or we meet some resistance,
Right.
right? Whether it be, and I myself am guilty of this too, where I'll be cruising along my days and be in this present, positive, open state of mind, not feeling constricted or limited. And this isn't even just for business, this is for life. And something will come and throw me for a loop. Like all of a sudden, I don't know, the dog just vomited on the floor. Now I'm worried about, and I say that, sorry guys, a lot of information, but it happens all the time. I've got two dogs too.
Yeah.
Or my power just went out and I've got meetings all day. Or, I get into an argument with my significant other or whatever it is. And I'm like, this isn't the way it was meant to go today. And you
Right.
get thrown. And instead of just sitting and thrown off or feeling that resistance, whether it be in work or your personal life, I love the let's try and solution for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, things didn't go exactly how I thought they were going to go, but I can pivot. And I
Yes.
can say, well, there's a reason that that didn't work out. We're going to pivot a little bit and take another route or solution a different way or propose something different. I
Hmm.
think too often we spend too much time getting stalled in our tracks and then we lose momentum. And we get totally thrown off when we really have very little control in life as it is. So you're right. So the sooner that we learn to pivot and come up with some solutions, the much more resilient we'll be. And also just in a state, I think, of presence, that we can really live. I don't know if you'd agree there. So,
Oh, yeah, 100%. And
yeah.
I think I struggle with being present sometimes, a
Yeah,
lot of times. But
sure.
yeah,
I think we all do. We live in a very stimulated world where it's constant grabs of our attention. I like to call it, and some of them are thieves of our time and attention. But sometimes we have very little, control over being able to block such things unless we are just going to go sit still somewhere and be totally present. But there are simple things that I try and implement in my life. Like when my children are talking, I have nothing in my hands and I look at them. And if I can't, I'm like, you hold that because you're only getting a piece of me right now and I want to give you my full attention.
yeah.
And I would say I'm pretty good about that 90% of the time. But then also with, my clients too, everything else is shut off because it's as you probably do just the same. And that's why, you have such beautiful relationships. You've got my full attention and I want to be just here. Because as we all know, and I think it was Matthew McConaughey says all the time, which is really funny. He's like, don't half-ass it.
Right.
Just don't. He's like,
Yeah.
don't.
Yeah.
Because when we do, we're just not giving all, of ourselves right there. And it never feels great,
No.
you
No.
know?
Yep.
So
And you can miss that one little thing you need to
the
hear.
one little detail. And
Yeah.
how good does it feel? And I know you know this, is that when you are actively listening and you can go back to your client and say, I heard you say that this was important to you. And they're like, you really heard me. You did. And that's where that rapport is established.
You like the
And
one.
that's where they want to come back to Parker because she gets me, she listens, she knows what my needs are.
Yes.
She can speak them back to me and it's intentional versus just be transactional. So
100%.
I
Yes.
love that. Well, where can people find you? So if they want to know more about the short-term rentals, if they want to know more about just, portfolio management or investments, or even have questions in regards to what, you think the market might be doing, and maybe they've never done, added real estate to their portfolio, and it's something that they've always wanted to do and want to start that conversation, where can they find you?
Absolutely. So I do have a website. It's a mouthful. It is.
That will also, for those that are listening, don't worry, don't stop what you're doing, especially if you're driving or anything. We will add it to the show notes so you'll be able to see that and link everything to Parker. But
Thank you. It is wealthbuildersmortgage.com. So wealthbuildersmortgage.com. And I've got a link on there. Feel free to set up a time on my Calendly app. I'd be happy to speak with you further and give you advice, insights, pre-preview for a mortgage or kind of give you an idea of how all that works and down payments. Yeah, I think
yeah,
a lot of people are surprised to know that they can actually purchase a short-term rental with as little as 10% down in a lot of
absolutely.
cases. So yeah, so there's some actually really great and easy options for those looking to get started.
I love that. And just to be informed, because I think it's again, it goes back to the resistance, which sometimes can just be not knowing, and intimidation in a lot of sense, especially for women today and in the workforce and having, we have a lot of, and men who are looking to diversify their portfolio and not understanding, as you just said, that it could be as low as 10% down and understanding that they could potentially qualify for this when they just see it, at face value that, wow, interest rates are so high and I don't have the liquidity to be able to put into that right now because it's, typically 20%. for a home, this and that. So dispel some of those misconceptions opens up the availability to be able to do this. Guys, so if you're listening, talk to Parker and get informed just so you know, because I think being the architect, not only of your financial well-being and setting yourself up for success, but your, mental well-being is just as important. So diversify, get the information, educate yourself, and go do all the things. So absolutely. Yeah. Oh, great. Thank you so much, Parker. This has been absolutely amazing. I learned a lot, which I love. I know we'll be connecting further. Again, thank you all so much for listening, and we will share all the information so you can get in touch with Parker, learn any more, share your comments, and yeah, we'll talk soon. So thank you.